Hello everyone and welcome once again to the MoeGamer podcast. Slightly late this week, for which we apologise, but it's obviously going to be a little bit disrupted over the holiday season. But I'm hoping at the moment I will get a very special episode X up for the holiday season if I can convince some old friends to join me. So look forward to that, unless it doesn't happen, in which case forget I said any of that. So, for today, though, once again, I'm joined by my good friend Chris Kasky of MrGilderPixels.com. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
All right, great.
Back to the land of the living.
Yes, Chris has not been well recently.
No, upper respiratory infections are not fun.
Fun, yeah. Not a good time of year to get sick either, in my experience.
It's like the only time of year I get sick. It's like always Christmas. I always get sick for Christmas.
Yeah, I had a few years where I got really bad flu around this time of year, and it's just the worst time of year because it's already a depressing time of year with the weather and the temperature and just being stuck in bed with aches and pains and not being able to move and not even having the energy to play video games.
And there's tasty treats everywhere, and you can't taste them fully.
I know. Oh, don't talk to me about tasty treats. The wife and I have just started dieting again, so, tasty treats are mostly off the table anyway. But
no!
It'll be fine. It'll all be fine. Right, so we're going to follow our usual three-part format today. We're going to be talking about a bit of news first of all, and since it's been about 3 weeks or so since we last got together and talked about stuff, there's a fair bit of stuff to talk about, so some of these stories will be a few weeks old by the time, but we still wanted to talk about them anyway, because there's some interesting stuff to cover. Then we'll be moving on to what we've been playing recently, which is probably mostly going to be a discussion of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate today, since that's been occupying both of our respective free time a fair bit. Mm-hmm. And then our final segment for today will be our topic-based discussion, which today we're going to be talking a bit about 3D mascot platformers throughout the ages. So, let's kick off with some news. What did you want to start with?
I'm just going to cherry pick some little short things, okay. But wow, we really do have a lot of stuff piled up here. Having trouble even figuring out where to start. SNK Heroines. We're getting John from World Heroes was announced, so that's pretty cool. World Heroes kind of tends to get ignored in the greater discussion of SNK fighters, so not a huge piece of news, but I just thought it was really cool because, she's a neat character, and World Heroes has some really goofy, occasionally culturally offensive character designs, but it's awesome to see the series get acknowledged in the greater lexicon of SNK history. So neat. Yeah.
Alrighty. If you hear any strange whirring in the background, by the way, my wife's making soup, so apologies if you can hear that. Anyway, yes, other stuff happening. What have we got? Interesting little snippet, not a lot to say about it, but I was interested to see that Tsunako has actually left Idea Factory and Compile Heart to work freelance. She is still going to be working with them, though, so presumably it's just a matter of personal circumstances. It works out better for her to work on a freelance basis rather than be employed. So not a lot to say about that, but it was just interesting to highlight. That also means that theoretically it would open her up to doing stuff with some other companies as well, which would be nice. See some other companies have the opportunity to use her distinctive art style. Other little snippets. Axis Games have opened a European online store, which is very exciting because up until now Axis Games have either been digital only, reliant on sort of third-party distributors, or you have to import them. So actually having a proper European store for their stuff is really nice because it means we can get our hands on physical editions of their games and also nice limited editions as well. So I've ordered a copy of Deathmark for Switch, which looks like a really interesting sort of visual novel, adventure game, dungeon crawler hybrid. So I'm looking forward to giving that a try. I think that's not out until February over here in Europe. It's already out in the States, but it's not out here yet. So I'm looking forward to taking a look at that in the future. I may save that one for Halloween next year.
Every time someone mentions Deathmark, I get excited because I think they're talking about that new Intercreates game, which is dragon marked for death. And then
which also looks fabulous, to be fair. There's been some more trailers and bits and pieces of those, and that is looking lovely. So looking forward to that one. Other stuff. Netflix is expanding its anime lineup with probably its most notable addition being the fact it's getting Neon Genesis Evangelion. Which I'm pretty excited about, because I started watching this on DVD probably in university, so this is probably about 15 years ago now, until I realised that collecting all the DVDs was going to be prohibitively expensive for a student such as myself at the time, so I stopped after like 2 DVDs worth. But I was intrigued by what I watched, and I've never had a chance to catch up with it since, so having it ready to go on Netflix will be very welcome indeed.
It is from a standpoint of anime history, one of the bigs.
Yes.
Right? It's like Astro Boy and an Ava.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, just the cultural impact of Ava. And then also Studio Gainax, and I mean, the people who were responsible for Ava eventually are now the people at founding Trigger, who are continuing to do some of the best work in the industry. I've never seen Ava, which is a black mark on my anime fan.
Oh, that's surprising.
Report card. I know, because I'm also a giant robot anime fan specifically. Like, that's my genre, and I just never had an opportunity to see it.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about this. I'm gonna binge the hell out of it over a weekend.
Sounds good. All right. What else have we got for quick
also remotely Tsunako related? That new Compile Heart game for mobile phones sounds pretty cool.
Oh yes.
Mega Miracle Force.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically Super Compile Heart Wars. It's going to be a strategy game with characters from over 70 titles coming to smartphones. So that'll be cool. That'll get your gotcha engines fired up, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely worth a look. Assuming it comes over here, but we'll have to wait and see on that one, I guess.
50-50.
Yeah.
We get good luck with Compile Heart stuff in the West. I mean,
pretty good. I mean, we haven't seen any of their mobile stuff, because they've previously done a Neptunia mobile game which didn't do very well. I don't think.
Oh, that was Japan. The card game, right?
Yeah. So that was a while back now, but that didn't do too well. But that was right in the middle of the real glut of mobile card battlers when developers just sort of first cottoned on to the whole gacha mechanic and things. So I think that came out with poor timing. So. I mean, I know we're still flooded with hundreds of them now, but I think developers are a bit more comfortable with making them distinct from each other now. Whereas when that came out, it was very much the sort of Rage of Bahamut model, where you collect cards and then you don't really do very much with them. You just basically have to make sure you have higher numbers than the opponent.
Yeah. No, this appears to be like an actual game. Like, yes. It's specifically going to be a strategy RPG, which is cool.
Yes, definitely up for that. Other little bits and bobs. Nintendo has ended its creators program, which sounds like it might be a bad thing, but in fact what it actually means is that you should no longer be getting copyright strikes when you make Nintendo YouTube videos, which is nice. So they outright state that you can monetize transformative works now, which includes sort of videos about their games, let's plays, and all that sort of thing. So anyone who's been all Nintendo and YouTube videos for the last few years can now stop moaning, because it's not a problem anymore.
It's essentially a tacit understanding from Nintendo that they now understand and will support what is commonly considered fair use policy.
Yes.
So critical works are finally available.
Yeah. It's kind of a shame that it took them so long to catch on to this, with the Switch already being a big success, because I wonder how different like the Wii U landscape would have been made, for example, if they sort of hadn't had this policy in place while that console was out there. I mean, it probably wouldn't have saved the console or anything like that, but it might have had a bit more of an impact if a few more people could get those games out there and be getting paid for the creative works that they were doing with them. So,
it's a new world. It's a hip,
better late than
it's
never.
A hip, cool Nintendo.
Yes,
hip, cool, open-minded Nintendo. I don't know what's going on.
I like new Nintendo. I'm a big fan of what they've been doing so far. So and they have a real opportunity here with Sony being whatever they are at the minute. So so good to see. Other little bits and bobs, a little piece of retro gaming news. If you ever played the Ultima Underworld games, which are sort of two of the defining first-person dungeon crawlers that went beyond grid-based movement. So Ultima Underworld 1 and 2 were sort of the first true 3D dungeon crawlers that would go on to inspire stuff like things like Elder Scrolls and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There is now a full Unity-based port of Ultima Underworld 1 and 2 that has been developed by someone on GitHub. So it basically uses the maps and assets from Underworld but ports it into a modern engine, which means that you don't have to use the horrendous control scheme that the original used. And so it's actually playable. Who'd have thought it? So that's very exciting if you've ever wanted to revisit those games but couldn't face the horror of the mouse-based movement of those original ones. All right. Any stories you particularly want to get your teeth into?
It's just one of those like spans of like little stuff, right? So like Bloodstained, the new Castlevania from
from
Koji Igarashi. They have announced now that Way Forward has come on board to help complete development of the game, which is super exciting because we love Way Forward.
That's a real dream team now because they've got Create helping out as well, haven't they? So
yeah, it's pretty great. Like it's just like if there was ever a recipe for a great side scroller, like we're facing it right now. Koji Igarashi directing with Into Creates and Way Forward on support. Like this could be excellent. I mean, I hate to get like so excited for like a Kickstarter game because we've been burned in the past, but this is all signs are pointing to this being quite wonderful, and the demos have been really good so far. So I'm daring to be optimistic.
Yes, very much looking forward to this. I've been quite hungry for some traditional Castlevania recently for some reason.
And I can't imagine why.
Well, yeah, you know, but I one of the things that my mind just keeps coming back to though is just with what Capcom's been doing with Mega Man. Why the hell hasn't Konami done a classic Castlevania collection?
Yeah, that's kind of we kind of talked about that a while ago, right? Like,
yeah,
I hope that they kind of realize. I mean, they're primed, right? Like the popularity of the animated series, is undeniable. Everybody loves the animated series. The launch of the Symphony of the Night and Rondo of Blood collection. And now them understanding their history enough and getting involved with Smash Brothers. Like, it feels like someone at Konami kind of knows what the hell is going on. And maybe we're going to start seeing a little bit of Castlevania in our lives again. I mean, I liked the Lords of Shadow games.
Yes.
Like I'm I'm one of those people who defend the hell out of those games, and I'm always on Twitter like tweeting at Konami to like, hey, it would be great a complete collection remaster for the PS4 with all the DLC, all 3 games, all DLC on the PS4. I would love that.
Yes, that would be great. But yeah, it just surprises me that they've not done a 2D collection up until now, because surely that would be a moneymaker for them. Surely.
Yeah. And the Switch is certainly primed to be a place for something like that to drop.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Switch is an ideal place for that kind of games. I mean, I know we say that a lot because of the whole handheld thing and so on, but Switch seems to be doing particularly well with sort of retro style games and that kind of thing. There seems to be a good audience for them. I guess that partly might be a side effect of the sort of previous Nintendo family-friendly thing with maybe slightly older people picking up Switches and stuff as well and having that nostalgia for those older games. But it seems that companies like Hamster and so on have been doing quite well with their arcade archives and Neo Geo titles on there as well. We've had the SNK collection recently, which has been pretty well received. Atari's just put out a massive collection of Atari 2600 games for it, which it compiles all 3 of the Flashback Classics compilations that were previously released on PS4 and Xbox One. So yeah, there's a real good market for retro games on there. So yeah, make it happen, Konami, as if you're listening. You never.
They are. They are.
Of course they are. Talking of Neo Geo, did you see Twinkle Star Sprites is out on the Switch now?
Oh, is it really? That's a great game.
Yes.
That's a really great game.
Yes, I know. But yeah, if you've wanted to play that on the go, now you can. So that's nice. Like the other sort of ACA archives games, it's about I think £6.99, so probably I don't know, $7 or $8 in the States. Well worth it. Very unusual shoot 'em up with some really interesting mechanics.
Yeah, it's basically a drop puzzler fused with a shoot 'em up, which is a really crazy combination, and it's such fun for multiplayer competitive.
Yeah. So that's good. What else have we got? Apparently we are getting a remake of Panzer Dragoon 1 and 2 from a company called Forever Entertainment. So I don't think anything else has been announced about this since they announced that they're working on it. But Forever Entertainment is a company who seems to... Their back catalogue seems to mostly be sort of smaller indie games. I'm not sure how many of them are mobile titles, but a lot of them look like they might be mobile titles. But they also did Fear Effect Sedna recently, which was the brand new Fear Effect game that sort of snuck out quietly a few months back. That was a sort of, rather than a fixed camera angle survival horror like the original ones, this one was more of a sort of isometric action puzzler, I believe. It looked like quite an interesting game. I haven't played it yet, but yeah, it was really interesting to suddenly see Fear Effect being vaguely relevant again. So I'll be interested to see how they get on with Panzer Dragoon.
As long as it doesn't become an isometric puzzle action game.
I'm sure it won't. I mean, they've specifically said these are remakes of the original, so they're going to be. It's not just an upscaled version of the original. They're going to be completely redoing the graphics, and apparently making several modifications to the game, making it more attractive to modern players while remaining faithful to the original in terms of story.
What I'm hoping that means is that they're tacking RPG elements onto it. maybe like collectible weapons or like stuff that levels up, like something to really put your hooks in. Because let's face it, like I want to do an episode in the future for us when we do on rails 3D shooters like Panzer style. I think that's ripe for us to talk about. But one thing I think we can agree on that is not attractive to modern gamers in that genre is it's as we talked about with light gun games, it's just that arcade experience. You sit down to play Panzer is always Panzer. The levels are always the levels. You sit down, it's 45 minutes out of your life, done and done. The only replay value is score based. Can I do a perfect run? Can I improve my score? So, I mean, that's not particularly attractive to modern audiences. Like, and one way that a lot of developers will make things more attractive to modern audiences and introduce replay value is through some light RPG elements or collectible items or...
Yes, it's either that or you take the Darius Burst approach and put 6,000 levels in your game.
It's also a very good approach.
Yes.
I love that game.
That is an excellent game. All right, what else we got? There is a new trailer for Dead or Alive Xtreme 3 Scarlet, which demonstrates the new soft 4D and VR Paradise features. So we talked briefly about this the other week. So there's going to be two versions of this new release of Dead or Alive Xtreme 3. The PlayStation 4 version will have VR support, but has Sony getting its dirty paws all over it, so ripping out some of the content because boobs. And the Switch version has this soft 4D function, which apparently makes creative use of the HD rumble in the Joy-Cons for you to enjoy in various ways. So yeah, there is a new trailer about that now if you want to check that out. There is going to be a new Mamotte Knight game as well. From Ancient Games. If you're not familiar with this, this is a game that I first encountered completely by chance on the Xbox Live Indie Games thing that no longer exists. Yeah, this was localized over here as Protect Me Knight, which is sort of a rough translation of the Japanese title. And how would you describe it? I guess it's sort of a multiplayer. It's kind of tower defense-y in some ways, isn't it? In that you've got a thing to defend. In the case of the original, it's a princess. But you have up to 4 players. You can move around a static screen. There's enemies coming in from all sides, and you make use of your character's various abilities to hack and slash them away. But the interesting twist is it's presented as a sort of really authentic-looking NES style, so making use of very low-resolution pixel art, a very limited colour palette that looks very true to the NES. sort of the only thing that really tips you off is that it isn't an NES is the fact that it's throwing way more stuff on the screen than the NES would ever be able to handle without melting.
Yeah.
So
way more colors, way more sprites.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite. When something has the NES style, but modern performance standards, it's like the best.
Yeah. So the new game is called Susume Mamotte Night Hime no Totsugeki Serenade, which will be launching in 2019 in Japan. So it is offline and online. The previous ones were offline only, I believe. I'm not sure about the 3DS one, if you could play that online.
But I don't know.
Certainly the original Xbox one you could only play offline. There are 8 types of characters now. You can set down barricades. You've got a castle to defend as well as the princess in the middle. So it looks like just sort of an evolution of the original game. So it's got that same gorgeous graphical style. Music by Yuzo Koshiro again, because Ancient Games is his jam. It's looking pretty lovely. So hopefully that will come west, and hopefully if it comes west, it will come to Europe this time, because the 3DS version didn't come to Europe, which I'm very upset
you guys
about.
didn't get God of Protectors?
No, I'm very upset about that.
My dream is a physical copy with God of Protectors and the new one together
that would
on
be
one,
great.
like for the Switch. Like, and there's been talk of a Switch port of God of Protectors, so that would be delightful.
Yes, that would be pretty lovely. Okay, what else would you like to talk about? Do you want to say some words about the new Granblue news?
Yeah, sure. So I don't really know anything about Granblue Fantasy except because I don't really dabble with mobile, but it's in the wide world of mobile, it's one of the mobile games that actually interests me because there's good development pedigree involved with it, beautiful character design. Yeah. So, we've got some new developments. Most notably, Arc System Works has announced Granblue Fantasy Versus. So they're going to be doing a new fighting game based on the Granblue Fantasy universe, using that beautiful technique that they've been using for Dragon Ball Fighters, the new Guilty Gear, and BlazBlue, which is that they do the 3D models and then they draw the 2D over them. So this game just looks beautiful. Now, I don't know anything about the characters because I haven't played the mobile game, but I mean, it just looks to me like a beautiful, brightly colored anime fighting game with a fantasy setting with some really cool character design. So, whether or not you're a Granblue Fantasy fan or not, this is a really cool looking fighter worth keeping your eye open for.
Yeah, well, the big strength of Granblue is that it's like you say, it's got the really nice character designs, but it's also got really strong characterization and narrative to it as well. So these characters who look set to be involved in the game are all really well established in the context of the mobile game at this point. So they've got lots of background lore, they've got established personalities, and it's looking very much like their incarnations in the fighting game are very true to how they behave and how they play in the mobile game as well, which is going to make a lot of people happy. But they're also very distinctive designs that even if you're not familiar with the mobile game in the first place, you can still get something out of them because they just look great. They're just really cool characters. And it looks like they've got a lot of fan favorites in there. So there's sort of the basic cast. So there's Gran, who is the player protagonist. There's Catalina, who is sort of the character you get first and follows along with you for most of the game. It looks like Lyria's involved. She's sort of your she's a non-combatant in the game, although I think there is a way of recruiting her in special events and certain things like that. There's Charlotta, who's one of the I can't remember what the race is called, but they're sort of the Granblue equivalent of like the Lalafels from Final Fantasy and Taru from Final Fantasy 11. So they're short, cute characters, and she's a sort of princessy character from that. She's been involved in a lot of story events and so on. And then there's a few others I don't recognise because I haven't played the game for a while. But there's, it certainly looks like there's some fan favourites in there, and they've been realised really nicely on the fighting game screen. The art style for the actual fighting looks like an interesting sort of hybrid between how the fighters are presented in the mobile game, which is as sort of chibi versions of themselves, they're 2D chibi versions, and their sort of full-size artwork. So there's kind of a distinctive style to them that's slightly different from their static art, but it gives the whole game a really distinctive look and feel. So yeah, this is looking really nice. Mm-hmm. It also seems that alongside that as well, that they've confirmed that whatever the other Granblue game was called, Relink or whatever, that is still happening. That's still a thing as well, and that's still looking lovely as well. So if one-on-one fighters aren't your thing, there's also going to be an action game to enjoy as well. So
which is being developed by Platinum.
Yes,
let us not forget.
Yes.
And it is super beautiful.
Yes, so good time to be a Granblue fan. It's also worth noting that if you're not familiar with Granblue and you don't want to play the mobile game, but you do want to get a feel for the story and the characters, there's apparently quite a good anime adaptation as well.
I
haven't watched that, but it's apparently quite good. So that's worth taking a look at if you don't want to engage with the actual mobile game.
Yeah, I'm just so excited because, like I said, I do care about this. I do care about Granblue as like a cultural phenomenon. I just don't care for the mobile games. So now I didn't realize that there was a decent anime out there, but these games are going to give me a way to engage with this setting. Yeah. In a way that is fun for me. So I'm really excited about finally having that opportunity.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that. Right. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Not really. I mean, the time has probably passed for it, but I thought that that survey that NIS sent out, Nipponichi, a little while ago was really interesting.
Oh yes, that is actually still running until the end of December. So hopefully, if I get this edited in time, you should still be able to jump in on that. It was by NISA in Europe. I don't know if the American branch did a similar one, but
yeah, they did.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. So yeah, they did a survey that was basically asking the experiences that you enjoyed in the last year, what you'd like to see more of, and that kind of thing. So. So there's questions like what the usual sort of what platforms do you play on, what genres do you enjoy, and there were also, if I remember correctly, there were some questions about sort of established series breaking out into new genres as well, weren't there?
Yeah, there was specifically a question like if you were to get a new Disgaea game in a genre that wasn't the typical strategy RPG, like what kind of Disgaea games would you like to see?
Yes.
Which I thought was awesome. Because, I mean, Prinny was great. The side-scroller for the PSP.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did a visual novel as well at one point. I can't remember what that was called, but there was there was definitely a Disgaea visual novel as well. So they've experimented with this in the past. But yeah, again, having these established franchises and breaking them out into other genres is a really great way of getting more people on board if they, for example, like the characters but don't enjoy strategy RPG gameplay or whatever. So yeah, several Japanese devs seem to be cottoning onto this now, which is great because it means
I think I voted for an action RPG. I think that's what I voted for.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be neat. Yeah, perhaps sort of combining that with some of the roguelike stuff that they've done in the past as well might be interesting because they did things like ZHP and Guided Fate Paradox and so on. Combine that with a sort of actual real-time element, that could be quite interesting. But yeah, go check that out if you're interested in finding out more. If you just check Nisa's Twitter, there's probably some links to it. And like I say, that should be running until the end of December. So by the time you hear this, there will hopefully still be some time to make your voice heard.
I think for me the most important thing about this survey was also when they were like, what are some of our older franchises that you'd like to see return? And there was specifically a checklist, and there was some good stuff in there.
Yes.
Like stuff I haven't heard people mention in a long time. So, I mean, this is going deep back into PS2 era NIS. Like, this is the good stuff, right? So, they mentioned Makai Kingdom. Mm-hmm. They mentioned Phantom Brave. Yep. They mentioned my favorite, Soul Nomad versus the World Eaters, which nobody remembers that game, but it's goddamn incredible. Uh-huh. And they were like, hey, check which of these you'd like to see return. So please go on there and vote for Soul Nomad so we can get a new Soul Nomad game because seriously, that game is incredible and you should look it up on YouTube and play it because it's great.
Excellent. All right, so let's cut that segment short there, and then we'll come back in just a moment, and we'll talk about, well, mostly Smash, to be perfectly honest. So, we'll see you in a moment. Welcome back. So, now we're going to talk about what we've been playing recently. What have you been playing recently, Chris?
Well, before we dive into the obvious, I just want to give a quick nod to Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. Because I have been waiting for this game for a very long time, and it actually turns out to be wonderful.
Excellent.
So Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom was a Kickstarter-led development from Game Atelier, who back in the day made some cute little mini games for the PSP Minis campaign. They were most known for Flying Hamster, which was an adorable little horizontal shoot 'em up.
Yeah.
So they originally kickstarted a game that was going to be part of the Flying Hamster universe, because apparently it deserves its own universe, that was going to be a tribute to the old Wonder Boy games, which, if previous listeners will know, I'm obsessed with the Wonder Boy franchise. So basically what ended up happening was a lot of people really liked the look of this Kickstarter and were really keen on the idea of a Wonder Boy tribute game. And the actual creator of Wonder Boy, Ryuichi Nishizawa, actually saw this campaign and contacted the people over at Game Atelier, and it matured into an actual full-blown Wonder Boy sequel.
Nice.
So Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom is, genuinely speaking, like an actual new entry in the Monster World lexicon.
Yes.
So they took out, you were originally going to be like a little hamster dude, but now you're actually like a kid with cute spiky anime hair. The monster transformations are back from Dragon's Trap style game, which hasn't happened in the past couple of Wonder Boy games. So it's kind of bringing back that style. And Nishizawa was involved, and it's full of little tributes. I know I posted on Twitter a little while back, but when you find the main town, the church has stained glass windows, and each of the stained glass windows is the hero from a previous Wonder Boy title.
Oh, nice.
So it's full of little nods like that. Early in the game, you meet the Papalogu, which is the cute little squishy monster that follows you around in the last Wonder Boy game for the Genesis.
Yeah.
So it's pretty great. It plays crisp. It's got beautiful hand-animated style. It's just absolutely worth every penny. It's everything it was meant to be and more. It's a proper Wonder Boy game in 2018, and it's great.
Oh, that's great. Why isn't it called Wonder Boy? Does someone else own the trademark to that or something then?
Yeah, so like Wonder Boy is technically owned by Sega.
Right.
So I don't know the legalese and all the details, but like Sega was in some way, shape, or form supportive of this.
Right. Because
when you boot it up, there isn't like a Sega logo. It doesn't come up, like it's not Sega developed or Sega published. But if you look in like the fine print on the bottom of the title screen, like Sega's there.
Oh, okay.
So like they gave some kind of like tacit approval for maybe like the tribute stuff. But yeah, it's I don't really know why it's not technically a full-fledged Wonder Boy title, but it definitely is, because it acknowledges that the other Wonder Boy games exist.
Yeah.
In its narrative.
Well, I mean, I think calling it Monster Boy is sort of similar enough that people will probably figure that out anyway. As an aside, did you know that the Switch version of that Sega Classics pack that came out a while ago does not have the 2 Wonder Boy games in it?
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad I didn't sell my PS4 copy and rebuy the Switch one like I was planning.
Well, yeah, there we go. Just a bit of public information for you there. No one seems to know why they've been taken out of the Switch version, but no, they're not there. So
that's
bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. That is a shame, because I mean that whole package would be great for playing on the go on the Switch, and the Wonder Boy games especially. Yeah, so for them to not be there is a bit of a shame, really. But there you have it.
Huh.
All right. Other stuff I've been playing. I won't spend too much time on this. The main other thing I've been playing is Atelier Rorona DX for Switch, which I'm going to be making the first cover game feature on MoeGamer for the new year, along with its 2 sequels. So watch out for that then. But suffice to say for now that the Switch port, it's a good port. It's got all of the DLC from the PS3 and Vita versions. It loads a fair bit quicker. Some people have been a bit pissy about the frame rate being 30 frames a second rather than 60 frames a second, but it's a turn-based RPG about crafting, so who gives a shit?
Get over it.
And it looks lovely. It's got that distinctive Melchizedek art style to it. Atelier Rorona Plus, which was the re-release of Atelier Rorona, upgraded all the character models so that they look much more like the 2D art. It's got lovely gust music. And one of the nice things that they added in Atelier Rorona Plus and is still present in DX is the fact that it comes bundled with a whole bunch of additional music from older Gust games and some of the newer ones, in fact. So you can reassign the music for things like the workshop, wandering around the town, getting into battles and stuff, or whatever you want, from everything from the really early Atelier games right up until things like Atelier Shally and Lydie and Suelle and that sort of thing, along with some of the rearranged albums that Gust have put out over the years as well. So if you really want to customize the experience with some additional music, you can do. So I'm probably about halfway through Rorona at the minute, so I will have that finished by the time of the new year, and then it will finally be time for me to play Totori and Meruru, which I've been meaning to play for literally years now and have somehow never got around to. So this is the perfect excuse to. So that's what I've been up to. So other than that, it has been Smash. Lots of Smash. So well, where do you want to begin?
I don't even really know what to talk about in the context of Smash. I mean, it's great. It's full of delightful surprises at every turn. Even just, I've been engaging primarily with the classic mode, because it's kind of the most efficient way to unlock characters. And even within the classic mode, it's kind of crazy because the generally speaking, a classic mode's always kind of been just an arcade experience. Just, you face a couple challenge levels followed by a boss, which is usually Master Hand or Crazy Hand, and then it's over. But many of the experiences for the classic mode are really just custom built for each character in ways that are kind of surprising to me.
Yes, well, they've built a specific route for each character, which includes specific characters for them to fight, often specific colour variations on a theme as well. You have the same bonus level with everyone, and then there's, I think, like 5 or 6 different bosses that the whole thing can conclude with, depending on the character. And so, yeah, so they have built a specific classic mode experience for each and every one of those characters in Smash Ultimate, and there are a lot of characters in Smash Ultimate, as has been a key part of the marketing up until now. So, and they don't just sort of choose which characters you're fighting as well. So, for example, if you are doing Ryu's route, all of his classic mode fights are stamina battles, because that's more like Street Fighter.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then there's just the wonderfully surreal sight of Pac-Man fighting Dracula, or Yoshi fighting
is that the boss
Rathalos.
of the Pac-Man route?
Oh yeah. Pac-Man fights Dracula, and Yoshi fights Rathalos from Monster Hunter. it's just fantastic. So yeah, I've been spending a lot of time on that as well to try and unlock characters. So I've been having fun with that. I also enjoy the shoot 'em up in the credit sequence as well. Smash has always had some sort of interactive credit sequence, but this has a fun little shoot 'em up where you're blasting down the names of the people who worked on the game, and the more points you score in that, the more rewards you get after you finish classic mode. So that's good.
I enjoyed it like the first 10 times. Now I just skip it.
Yes. Yeah, thankfully you can skip it. So if you don't feel the need to get those 5 items, which to be honest you can get pretty easily anyway, yeah, you can skip over that without any real penalty. Yeah, so other stuff. The big single player mode that's been added is the adventure mode, the World of Light. This has been sort of the hyped up thing for it. And I found this really interesting so far. I engaged with it a fair bit when I first got the game, before I decided I wanted to try and unlock the characters so that if a multiplayer session did come up, I've been trying in vain to get my local friends to play for the last week or so. But yeah, I wanted to prioritise unlocking all the characters, which I've now done, so I can go back to World of Light and enjoy it a bit more. World of Light is really interesting in that it kind of takes a similar approach to the Mario Tennis Aces adventure mode, in that it's clearly designed to train you to play the game better.
Yes.
In that it presents you with a series of very specific challenges, and tasks you with finding a way through them, or finding a way to deal with them. So in the case of Smash, you will do things like you'll face enemies who it says they favour specific attacks, and that means that is all they fucking do for the whole fight. And so that is training for when you come across a player who is very fond of spamming a particular attack, for example. So if you have someone who's very fond of using projectile attacks, you get in some practice against a spirit who favours neutral specials and that sort of thing. So so that's quite an interesting approach. There's again, like you talked about with the classic mode, there's a really nice way of linking the actual context of the fight and the characters with the spirit they're supposed to be representing. So, for example, there was a fight I did last night that was against the spirit of I forget his name, but there's like a tiny bug thing from Earthbound. There's literally like 2 pixels on the screen, and the spirit was this bug. And the fighter that I was fighting was a super tiny Mr. Game & Watch who started at 300% damage. So all you had to do to win the fight was just slap him once.
Oh.
And it's brilliant. But then it's doing all sorts of other things, like there's one of the things it does is as you progress around the map and open up different areas of it, you'll find these transporters that take you to these little mini dungeons, and the little mini dungeons are all themed in various ways. There is one you get into, and it just takes you onto a map of Earth, and it's Street Fighter 2.
Oh, that's so cool! I haven't done any of these yet. I didn't play World of Light much.
Yeah. So it's got the Street Fighter 2 character select music in the background. You're going from route to route around the globe, and you are fighting like spirits that are all of the original Street Fighter 2 cast. So like you'll fight Blanca, and it's a green Donkey Kong, for example. The final challenge is the M Bison spirit, and I think it was Ganondorf playing him. But,
okay.
And he's a spirit who is like significantly higher power than you could possibly get in your team at that point. So just like M Bison was really difficult to defeat in arcade Street Fighter 2, he is an absolute nightmare to fight against in Smash as well. And similar to how Ryu's classic mode is handled, all of these fights are all stamina mode battles as well. So yeah, so that's really cool. Elsewhere there was like a sort of lava themed one that was obviously supposed to be like a Mario castle, and that ended with a boss fight against Giga Bowser at the end of it. And so there's all sorts of little things like that. So it might initially look like you're just going around a map and doing different fights, but then there's all this hidden stuff unlocks as you go around the place. So it's well worth exploring. There's a lot to do. It's not something you have to engage with if you want to. You can ignore it completely and still get a ton out of the game, because there's plenty of other modes to do. But in terms of sort of a long-term challenge for it, there's a ton there. That's a lot to enjoy. So you've been enjoying some of the other single-player modes, haven't you? You've been playing a bit of the Spirits board.
Yeah, I've liked the Spirit board quite a lot because I like collecting the spirits, obviously, because I just squeal like a freaking baby whenever I get like a cool... Like, I got the main character from last story the other day, and I lost my mind.
Yeah.
And I got some cool pirate lady from the old Wario adventure games that I forget her name, but it's awesome. She's like... It's amazing, the character. Like, I got Meryl from Metal Gear.
Yeah.
It's just every time, it's a delightful surprise. And... What I like about the Spirit board is it's kind of everything you were just mentioning that was fun about the World of Light. You still get those custom tailored spirit battles with the unique mechanical hooks, but you don't really have to like engage with the running around the map. Like, so if you like me, like Spirit, the World of Light is something where like, oh good, I've got a half hour to an hour, I'm going to sit down and really engage with this game. Like then I would play World of Light. But like Spirit board's a quick and easy way. If you want to get something, if you want to play something that's a little more mechanically weird than classic mode, but you don't quite want to dive into the World of Light, then the Spirit board's awesome.
Yes, definitely. I really like how there's a few little subtle jokes in terms of the spirits and their abilities as well. Have you seen the one of the girl from Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes?
No.
Have you played Ground Zeroes? Are you familiar with the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the character Paz in that who has a bomb somewhere you shouldn't have a bomb. And her spirit is that you start the batch with a bomb equipped.
Oh man. That's like, you know, we had mentioned before that like really what's amazing about Smash is it's no longer just a celebration of Nintendo history, it's a celebration of video game history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's little nods like that really tell you that the people at Namco and Nintendo who are making this game, they don't just know their Nintendo history. They love video games, they love the medium, and they love everything. It's so much fun to examine these spirit battles and try to think about the ways that they've engineered these fights to pay tribute to these characters using the mechanical scope of Smash.
Yeah.
And it really points out how versatile a game Smash has been engineered to be from the ground up. Mm-hmm. That they can do this. That they can make you have a fight that feels like it's paying tribute to an obscure character from one of the Castlevania DS games from 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I've been really enjoying that side of things so far. I haven't even touched like online or local multiplayer as yet, but I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. It seems like one of the most customizable Smashes that there's been as well. I know Smash has always been very customizable, but this one seems to have a real wealth of options to enjoy. I really like the idea of this stage morph thing it can do now as well. So when you're playing a multiplayer batch, you can have it morph between stages in mid-fight.
Oh, cool.
Which sounds really cool. So I'm looking forward to giving that a go because, you know, I don't want to play on Battlefield and Final Destination all the time because, you know, there's all these interesting stages. So why wouldn't you?
There's like 100 plus stages. Like, it's amazing.
Yes,
they're all interesting.
Yes, and they all have so much music as well, apart from the Final Fantasy VII one, which has 2. But aside from that, all the other stages have a massive selection of music to choose from as well. So, like the Castlevania stage, for example, has got so many awesome remixes of Castlevania themes from over the years. It's got stuff from like the PSP version, stuff from Symphony of the Night. It's got the Lament of Innocence theme. All sorts. It's got so many good pieces of music.
Have you heard about the like the Easter egg for Alucard that's hidden?
No. Okay,
so if you are playing as Pit on one of the stages that is a Kid Icarus stage, if you press the down taunt, instead of doing the normal taunt, Pit will pray to Palutena, and then you'll get a dialogue.
Oh, yes,
just like you did in the Kid Icarus game for 3DS.
Yes.
And like one of the dialogues, I think if you're playing against one of the Castlevania characters, like you get, like, Pit has a dialogue with Alucard, and it's the same voice actor who did Alucard in the PS1 original. Like, they actually got him.
Oh, it's voiced as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I knew about the Palutena dialogue things because they introduced that in Smash 4. But, yeah, I've actually not tried those for myself and seen them yet. So, yeah, I need to check those out because I know Snake's got something similar with codec conversations as well. So it's going to be worth delving into those and see what they offer as well.
Yeah, and it's the actual original voice actor from Symphony of the Night, like the US.
Amazing. That's amazing. There was one of the spirit battles I did, I think, as well, that was on the Castlevania stage, where Alucard was there as an assist trophy for the whole fight as well, so you were basically fighting Alucard. So yeah.
And that's what the dialogue's about. Like, the dialogue's about, like, Pit's sad that Alucard's not playable. and Alucard's just like, no, I'm just here to help Richter this time. like, as an assist trophy.
That's amazing. Yeah. No, it is a really lovingly crafted game. There's just every part of it just seems to be filled with so much love and appreciation for gaming. And like we said, not just Nintendo games. I think I saw earlier today, there was an interview published with Sakurai that he doesn't consider it a Nintendo All-Stars game anymore. He just considers it as a gaming All-Stars game, which is absolutely right. So especially with this latest one, with all these characters from various sources. So
who knows what these other DLC characters are going to be?
Yeah.
Like the mind freaking swims.
Yeah,
I mean, if Joker from Persona is on the table,
yeah,
like who else is on the table?
Yeah, I'm really, really fascinated to see. So, I believe the quote he said was that the characters who were coming for DLC would all be from, what was the wording? I think it was something like all characters from series that are new to Smash or something.
Yeah,
like that.
They're not. Yeah, my dream character right now is Jibanyan from Yokai Watch.
Oh yes.
Because I just feel like Yokai Watch has such a strong following and like such a tie, like so many ties and a history of being part of Nintendo systems.
Yeah.
And I also think there's not enough like cute, doofy little chubby characters, like Pikachu's and the Pokemon out there. Like it's cool that we're getting stuff like Cloud and Bayonetta and Joker, like what I would consider like traditional like fighter build characters, but like I want more like goofy, chubby, dumb characters. Yeah, and that's so like I want that roly poly little cat dude.
Yeah, I know the Golden Sun fans are very keen for Isaac to be in there. I think is he already in there as an assist trophy? There's certainly something to do with Isaac in there. I think I unlocked a Mii costume for him as well. So, but I know the Golden Sun fans were a bit upset that he wasn't announced as one of the initial lineup. But
I love me some Golden Sun, but like I don't need another Sword Boy.
Yeah.
Like no, I mean, it's already oversaturated with the Fire Emblem characters. Like how much would you be able to distinguish Isaac from the Fire Emblem characters?
Yeah. And I mean, within the Fire Emblem characters, we've already got some slightly different handling Sword Boys as well, haven't we? So I'd sort of previously written off the Fire Emblem characters as being the boring ones, but I've been playing with them a bit in this version and have been pleased to see that they're actually all reasonably different from each other. But
yeah, they're great.
I think they have probably reached the limit of different things you can do with Dude with Sword at the minute. So yeah, I mean, while it would be nice for Golden Sun to get some representation and acknowledgement, I'm not sure that's a direction they want to go. But we'll see. I mean, like you say, the mind really boggles with the possibilities. If Joker could be in there, then it can be literally anyone, couldn't it? So yes, that's all very exciting. Yeah. So, any other stuff you want to say about Smash?
Not particularly. I mean, just it's a heck of a lot of fun. And just like when we talked about Hyrule Warriors Definitive on the Switch, like what we're talking about here is a game where if you got Smash Brothers for Christmas, you wouldn't have to buy a game in 2019.
Yes. There is so much game there. So just World of Light by itself is massive. Sort of when you first see the map, you think, oh, it probably won't take that long to get from one end of the map to the other. But then you have all these side activities and these little dungeons that you go off into, and new mechanics reveal themselves, and you find items and characters and spirits and obstacles to get past. And that's just one of the game modes. Then you got the spirits mode, and there's something like, I don't know how many, over 1,000 spirits in there, aren't there, to collect. And not a microtransaction in sight, I might add, as well, which is lovely when playing this kind of game.
No, it's just your if you want to buy your season pass for your characters, your DLC characters.
Yeah.
I did it. I broke my taboo. It's the first time I ever bought a season pass.
Yes, I will probably be following suit as well. So, That'll be fun to see. And we've got Piranha Plant to look forward to as well.
I can't wait, because I was just saying, I in Smash, I want more doofy, ridiculous, goofy characters that mechanically you can't even wrap your head around how they're gonna play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can already figure out how Joker's gonna play, right? Yeah. Like, but Piranha Plant, I don't know what the hell that's gonna consist of. Like, that's what I like in Smash.
Yes. Yeah.
And I like when characters, I had mentioned you in a conversation earlier in the week how much I never had really engaged with Sonic before.
Yeah.
But I'm really starting to like him because he's a great example of one of the things Smash does, which is most interesting to me as a guy who likes to analyze mechanics, is I really like when they take the character and then they make the character's moveset not just relevant to them as a character, but relevant to the mechanics of the game that they're from.
Yes.
So, like, in discussing the Fire Emblem characters, that's not a big deal, because Fire Emblem's a turn-based game. They can make those characters do whatever they want, as long as it looks like the flourishes look like what the characters do in their animations, in the clashes in the turn-based game. But, like, Sonic has his spin dash. His neutral B attack is the lock-on attack from the 3D Sonic games.
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool to me to experiment with these unique characters where the way they play in Smash is mechanically tied to the way they would control or handle in the game they're from.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was playing a bit with the Duck Hunt duo last night, and they're quite an interesting set of characters as well, because their neutral special is it will chuck a can onto the screen from the bonus round from Duck Hunt. And pressing neutral special again while the can is on the screen will have someone fire at it from off screen, so as if there's someone there with a light gun shooting at it.
Unbelievable.
And if anyone is caught in the blast from that when they hit the can, because they always hit the can, if anyone is caught in the blast for that, they will go flying because they've been shot. So yeah,
so cool. Yeah, I've never gotten the opportunity to play as them yet. I did not play the Wii U version very much. Because I got it in a time in my life where I didn't have a big social circle, so I just never played it very much. Yeah. And I didn't think the single-player components in the Wii U version were very good.
No, they were pretty weak.
So I never even unlocked the Duck Hunt crew on the Wii U version. Mm-hmm. So I'm super excited for this.
Yes, yeah. There's some really, really fascinating characters in there, and it's the nice thing about Smash is it's really easy to get to know how to use them as well, just because the control scheme is so simple that anyone can pick up any of these characters and at least get their moves out. If not know the best uses of them, anyone can at least get all the moves out. But I also appreciate the acknowledgement of things like when you're playing as Ryu and Ken, you can actually do the normal inputs for Fireball and Dragon Punch and stuff, and it will still do them. So yeah, stuff like that. So yeah, I just really appreciate what it's doing, because I know it's sort of, one, it's marketed as a sort of party fighting game, and two, some people don't take it seriously as a fighting game and so on, but there's a lot of the really interesting mechanical and tactical stuff from fighting games in there that you can learn a lot from playing Smash. And it's just a mechanically rich, really interesting game. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. Like you, I played the Wii U version a bit, but came away a bit disappointed with the single player offering, especially after Subspace Emissary from Brawl, which I really enjoyed.
Sure.
And so it's nice to have a Smash that I feel like I can enjoy by myself, because as much as I would like to play with other people, realistically, online, I'm a bit hesitant to jump on board with, because I know I'll probably get destroyed by a lot of people, and so I'd probably only want to play with friends. And locally, it's just such a pain to get people together in the first place anyway. So it's nice to have such a substantial offering for solo players as well, an acknowledgement that some people are going to be picking this up just because it's fun to play with these Nintendo characters, not just to play against other people, but just having the opportunity to control any one of these characters and see what they do and their moves and how they react in different situations. So yeah, I really appreciate that side of it. All right.
That being said, we should get a few matches in when we're done today.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's do it. So, okay, let's call time on our Smash discussion for there, because it's been nearly half an hour now. So, and we will come back for our third segment, in which we will be talking about today's main topic. So we'll see you in a moment. Welcome back. So for our third segment today, we wanted to talk about 3D mascot platformers. And we wanted to kind of specifically avoid Sonic and Mario, because we've already done a Sonic episode, and, you know, Mario is sort of the de facto thing that people go to when they're talking about mascot platformers. I always find it mildly frustrating when you see someone being interviewed and they're asked what their favourite game is, and sort of after a brief bit of thinking, they sort of blurt out Mario 64. I mean, I'm not saying Mario 64 isn't a fantastic game or anything like that, but you know, there's other stuff out there, and it's nice to acknowledge those. So what we wanted to do today is to talk a little bit more about some of the slightly more I don't know if I want to say unsung heroes, but lesser sung heroes of the 3D mascot platformer genre over the years. So, I mean, Chris, you suggested this in the first place. So did you have somewhere that you wanted to start with this discussion?
Not really. I just had some titles that I like that I wanted to throw out and have some fun talking about. So, I mean, like you'd mentioned, you know, I don't think any discussion about this can be really had seriously without at least mentioning the importance of Mario 64, like the formative aspects of Mario 64, and how really Nintendo innovated the idea of 3D camera control in Mario 64 that kind of made the boom of 3D platformers possible. But there were 3D platformers before Mario 64. They were just a little rough around the edges. They didn't have camera control. They didn't have analog control. One of the ones I had written down that I wanted to especially pay some lip service today to, that I've always been super fond of, was Croc.
Oh, yes.
Did you ever play Croc back in the day?
No, I never actually played this. I'm sort of familiar with it in passing, but I never actually played it myself.
So I really like, just from an aesthetic standpoint, really early 3D platformers, where like the stages were just undeniably geometry with some textures applied. Like, there's just something about exploring those really primitive, rudimentary 3D spaces that I really enjoy. And Croc was a great example of kind of that early platforming.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason that's so appealing is it's an obvious evolution from 2D platformer design, isn't it? Because most 2D platformers are pretty abstract in terms of how their levels are designed, unless they're specifically going for some sort of attempt to recreate a real world environment. But like if you think of sort of the 2D platformers of the SNES and the Genesis era, yeah, a lot of those were pretty abstract, and so the early 3D stuff was just kind of taking that approach and trying to transplant it into 3D.
Yeah, that's a pretty good logical string to follow. Yeah, like I said, I just find that visual style so appealing, and Croc was rough around the edges, right? Because it was a pre-Mario 64 age, and it was tank controls, which was pretty common in old platformers. You actually had to rotate the world around you and then only walk forward and backwards. But I always found it playable, and I really always just liked it. I thought it was cute. The characters were cute. Also, Croc has a really interesting history. I don't know if you're familiar with it. But so Croc was developed by Argonaut, which are the people who made Star Fox.
Yes.
For Nintendo. And Croc was actually originally proposed as a Yoshi platformer. It was pitched to Nintendo.
Okay.
Like Argonaut wanted to make a Yoshi, give Yoshi his own game and have a Yoshi 3D platformer, and Nintendo turned the pitch down. And that's where Croc came from. They just basically gave Yoshi a little snaggletooth, took the shell off his back, and like, nope, it's a new character now. and then that's how Croc was born. So it's cool. So there's a little piece of game history for a series I really enjoy.
Oh, that's entertaining. Yeah. Oh, tank controls in platformers, though. That is something I found difficult to deal with back in the day, and I think it would just drive me insane now. I think I remember trying to play Tomb Raider and just getting annoyed with the way it controlled. For sure. I have difficulty with Tomb Raider. It never bothered me in Croc, though, and I think one of the reasons why is I actually find full analog control in platformers difficult at times as well. Specifically the depth of field and stuff when making platform jumps.
across chasms and stuff. One of the reasons I always found it really navigable with Croc was with the tank controls. You basically rotate the controller, and rotate the world around you till the platform you want to jump to is dead center.
Yes.
And then you can only move forward or backward.
Yeah.
Right, you can't move side to side while in the air also and queer up that jump. Like it has you can only move so it's only about the distance game then, not just about side to side.
Yeah, I guess you can say the same about Tomb Raider as well, because the Tomb Raider was very grid based, and so once you were familiar with how far Lara jumped with each different type of jump, so if you knew that she would jump 1 square forward from a standing jump and she could jump like 2 squares forward from a running jump, you could get your head around that quite quickly. But that was a very different sort of skill to what I was used to using in platform games. It was a lot closer to things like Prince of Persia and stuff that I never really got on with in 2D.
Right.
And so sort of making the switch to the more freeform approach to platform games, for me, the analog control felt very natural. I get what you mean with sort of having difficulties judging distance sometimes, particularly if you're playing an older game that is quite low resolution, when it can be quite difficult to distinguish things sometimes. But no, it's not something I've had a huge problem with over the years, and I've always really liked that feeling of direct control of where you're going with an analog stick. And so sort of the N64 era of platform, I didn't really engage with many 3D platformers on the PlayStation at all. Most of my experience in the early days of them was on the N64. So besides Mario 64, there was things like Banjo-Kazooie, which is obviously another sort of very prominent, well-known example of the genre. This was one of Rare's games, and it was one of those games that really helped to establish Rare as a dominant force in N64 development. So Banjo-Kazooie was just a nicely designed game. It had attractive graphics and character designs for the time. It had some good humor about it. It had great music. It had interesting level design. It had lots to do as well. I know it's quite fashionable to bash Rare platformers in their later years for being too heavily focused on the collectible side of things, but I feel like the original Banjo-Kazooie had a nice balance of things to do, and each of the different types of collectibles was sort of testing a different skill almost. So you had the what did you have? You had the musical notes that were basically a bit like coins in Mario, so they indicated various paths around the level. And then you had the jiggies that were sort of the star equivalents that were rewards for sort of completing significant challenges. And then there were the little things, Jinjos were they called, or something like that? They were sort of the really hidden ones. So those were the ones that really rewarded the exploration. So I really like that aspect of Banjo-Kazooie, because the sort of how much you'd managed to collect of each of those different types of collectibles was almost showing you how you were playing the game, how well you were doing with the different aspects of the way the game had been designed. So yeah, I enjoyed that. Banjo-Tooie, the sequel, I have some mixed memories of, because that was one of the games that I was writing a walkthrough for the official Nintendo magazine in this country.
Oh jeez.
So so you can imagine what an effort that was. So having to make a note of how to do everything, and also take screenshots of it all as well. So basically I had to play through the whole thing twice. Once to write the guide, and then once when I was in the office in London to actually take screenshots of it all as well. Banjo-Tooie was really interesting though, because it was Rare starting to get really creative, so they were doing some different things in there. It was kind of the beginning of the 3D platformer doing more than just platforming. So Banjo-Tooie had like a whole first-person shooter segment, for example, and racing sequences and all that kind of thing. And a lot of later platform games that we saw really built on some of the ideas in that game to mix up the mechanics and have you doing different things other than just exploring and jumping on platforms and that kind of thing. So did you have much contact with the N64?
Yeah, well, like my notes here is just basically like line 1 of my notes is Croc. Line 2 of my notes is just N64 exclamation point. So I never played Banjo Tooie, but I definitely loved the original Banjo Kazooie, and I had that written down. Just rare in general. Jet Force Gemini, Donkey Kong 64, just like all their stuff. But like one of the reasons I wanted to talk about the N64 specifically was just the delicious glut of these kind of games that Mario 64 ushered in.
Yes.
So the big one I had written down that I wanted to talk about because it was mechanically weird and I loved it, and I never meet people who played it, was Chameleon Twist. Did you ever play Sunsoft's Chameleon Twist?
No, that's one I do want to get hold of, though. And it's not horrendously expensive to collect these days, so I must try and get my hands on it at some point.
Yeah, so Chameleon Twist...
That's the one with the tongue, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So you can stick your tongue out, and then you can use the analog stick to control like where it goes. Like it's and you just like make it move across the screen. It's more of... the levels in Chameleon Twist, it's not so much like a grand 3D platformer in like the Mario 64 mold. It's more like Super Mario, the one on the Wii U was. Like it's more like these like toy-like dioramas that you explore, which I really enjoy that style of platformer.
Me too.
But I just loved Chameleon Twist, mainly because it was super abstract. Like every level was just like... There's no semblance of reality in Chameleon Twist. It's like, oh no, here comes a giant ice cream cookie sandwich. Like, don't get killed by that. like none of it really makes. Like, most of the enemies are like fun treats because you want to eat them up with your tongue, right? It's just a really pastel world with like really strange geometries. It's really trippy and mechanically interesting. Yeah, and there is two of them. But yeah, I really wanted to mention Chameleon Twist. I have fond memories of Glover.
Yeah, another one I didn't play, but was sort of familiar with in passing. So I recall that was one that got reasonably sort of middling reviews over here. So it's one that I passed up at the time. But yeah. So I have fond memories of that one. Also, Iggy's Wrecking Balls. Did you ever play Iggy's Wrecking Balls? I know the name of that one, but I can't picture what it is.
It's like all the like little cute characters were like balls. Like they just they didn't have limbs. They were just like little bouncy heads. Yeah. So it had a bit of like Marble Madness or like Marble Blast DNA in it. Like how you navigated through the stages. I mean, there's just so many. You could list N64 platformers all day. Yeah,
I think one of my favourites from that glut, not necessarily for being a good platformer, but for being an interesting game, was Conker's Bad Fur Day.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because that was actually Rare breaking from their normal format in a number of different ways. So not only was it not really a collectathon platformer, it was also very famously Rare deciding to sort of ditch the cutesy angle and go for a more sort of edgy, mature humour side to it. I mean, I say mature. There's a giant poo monster in it, but
I was going to say Conker's Bad Fur Day. Mature is not the word I would choose.
I mean, it's got swearing in it. Let's put it that way. But no, I liked Conker because it's sort of it was almost like a subversion of the collectathon format in that it did keep track of what you'd collected in terms of cash. So Conker was always rewarded with cash for completing one of the objectives in the game, but it wasn't... The way you got that cash was not the way you got, say, a Jiggy in Banjo-Kazooie or something like that. It was always a reward waiting for you at the end of a story sequence or something like that. And that was, I think, one of the main things I found interesting about Conker was that it was a series of interesting and amusing narrative set pieces that just happened to make use of platform game mechanics along the way.
Okay.
And so Conker is it takes you through. Conker's not split into discrete levels is the other thing as well. So unlike stuff like Mario and Banjo and that kind of thing, Conker is all one big, reasonably coherent world. It's not completely open world because there's still sort of scene transitions and so on, and there's specific places you go at specific times. But it doesn't sort of have that sort of demarcation between levels. It doesn't say now you're going to level 3, the haunted house or whatever. And I really like that approach because it just kind of captured the feeling of this silly narrative that you were following. So if you're not familiar with Conker, the basic plot of it is that Conker is a squirrel who was out drinking too late the previous night, and he wakes up in a field and just needs to get home with a raging hangover. And along the way, he gets into a series of increasingly ridiculous mishaps. And yeah, the structure of the game just sort of summarizes that increasingly ridiculous journey that he goes on. So he's starting with this sort of exploration of a farm and all strange things that are going on around there, and it sort of culminates in him going to war in this sort of really harrowing recreation of World War II, where he's fighting against the evil teddies and sort of using heavy weaponry and machine guns and that sort of thing. So again, this was another example of Rare experimenting with mechanics and sort of bringing in different genres into the 3D platformer format. So at different points in Conker, it very, very much shifted gameplay style. So again, there was sort of a racing sequence partway through. There were sections that were heavily dependent on puzzle solving and sort of creative use of the environment. Then there were sections that were pure platforming. There was the World War II section, which was sort of a combination of stealth and third-person shooter elements. There were really interesting boss fights, very few of which that were sort of straight sort of brute force things. A lot of them were sort of heavily mechanics-based and observation and timing and patterns and that sort of thing. And so I really liked that game, and I always thought it was a bit of a shame that we didn't see more of them. I did really like the Xbox remake that they did under Microsoft. That's actually still one of the best looking original Xbox games as well. And it's just a shame that Rare hasn't had the opportunity to do anything else with Conker ever since, because he was a good character. I think he was very much of his time, so I don't know if sort of his humour would land quite so well these days.
I would say definitively not.
I mean, I replayed the Xbox version quite recently, and I still found it amusing. But it's just
I'm not talking about you and me.
No, I know, I know what you mean. But yeah, so it's just whether or not sort of the broader market, to politely put it, would respond well to it. But
I don't really feel like seeing articles about how problematic Conker is and how Conker normalizes toxic masculinity.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, we have plenty of animated series that are doing a similar kind of humor to what Conker was doing. It's doing sort of edgy humor, sort of having a grown up but irresponsible and immature protagonist. So I think there's ways that it could work, but the way things are with Rare and Microsoft at the moment, I don't see it ever happening again. So we have to just sort of take Conker as a relic of the past, unfortunately. But
if we got anything new, it wouldn't come from Rare.
No,
right? It would come from Playtonic.
Yes.
Because no one who made Conker is at Rare anymore.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
They're all at Playtonic now.
Yes. Talking to them then, did you play Yooka-Laylee at all?
I did. It's on my list. I wanted to specifically talk a little bit about some modern indie stuff. Yeah, I did play Yooka-Laylee. Not extensively, but I did play it. I was a Kickstarter backer. I believed in it. I don't love it. I think that is shared amongst a lot of people. I think it's good. I think it's competent. But the camera is not very good, and that really detracts a lot from my ability to enjoy it. Now, there has been extensive patches meant to address some of that stuff, but I have not played it since those patches dropped. So my impressions are mainly from like the couple weeks around launch. But I do think it's good. It's just technically, you can feel how low its budget was when you play it. And I hate to be judgmental on that standpoint, but it feels cheap when you play it. It really does. And it's a shame because the ideas are there. The platforming is solid. There's, like you were mentioning with Banjo Tooie, there's moments that subvert the mechanical expectations of the 3D platformers. So each of like the worlds you can go to have a transformation sequence where you turn into like a dump truck or something, and then so then it will play differently, and there's specific tasks you have to accomplish as part of that transformation. So there's cool little hooks in there that are mechanically different. There's a lot of really neat ideas, and I do think it's worth playing. But I think you need to temper your expectations with the fact that it does not feel like it has some rough edges, basically. Is all I'm trying to say. And if you enter into the experience expecting those, then you can kind of temper the way you approach it. But it is not the end-all, be-all, beautiful revival of 3D platform or mascot platforms that we were hoping for.
That's a shame. Oh, well. Well, I mean... They gave it a go at least, and
it's
also,
great.
Yeah, and it's also they probably learned a great deal from it as well. So if they do something else, they will probably do an even better job of it. So if sort of their attempt at going it alone produced something that was pretty competent and good, then hopefully moving on from there, things will only get better from there. So
yeah. I mean, that's been my opinion of the game the whole time. Like, I'm always very willing to talk about where I think it was unsuccessful, but it is good. It is fun. It is playable, and it did accomplish what it set out to do. It didn't do it as successfully as it meant to, but that's okay. And like you said, if we contextualize it as a learning exercise, this was a very small team making a very big game using an engine that they weren't 100% invested in. I mean, not invested in, but not 100% familiar with, because they didn't build it from the ground up. Yeah. There's a lot of caveats in there that led to it being the product it was. So if we ever get a Yooka-Laylee 2, I have no doubt that it'll be a much more polished experience. Yeah. I had also mentioned Hat in Time. Have you ever gotten a chance to play that? That's been
I haven't.
Indie one.
I do really want to play that though, because I know that was very well received when it came out. So I haven't played it yet, but it's one that I do want to give a try.
Yeah, me neither. But I did want to at least bring it up because it's one of kind of the darlings of that scene right now. Another one I had written down is Unbox. Have you ever played Unbox?
No, I never heard of that one.
Yeah, okay. Unbox is really cute. That one I have played. I have it on Steam, and I think it's coming to console. I think it might be coming to PS4 on the PlayStation Network or something. Right. So Unbox is like the whole like narrative of Unbox is that there's like an Amazon style like global like shipping and online shopping conglomerate, and that they found the best way for them to save money on shipping was to create these sentient boxes that deliver themselves.
This sounds great.
And so you play as one of these adorable little sentient boxes. Yeah. And like you explore this platforming world and like try to deliver yourself, or like try to help other boxes deliver themselves to like delivery points. And it's just got a really cute aesthetic. Like the boxes have these adorable little smile faces on them, and you can unlock like skins for the boxes as you progress that are like cute. And it's just really good platforming with a strong emphasis on physics. Like the physics are really good, like the way you fall and the way the box reacts to gravity, right? Because you're not round and you don't have legs, you have corners and edges, so like the way you fall from launching yourself can be kind of dependent on the way you land on a corner, and then you might roll over and then fall off the platform, right? Because the physics pulled you in that direction.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this on Steam now. This looks adorable.
It's really cool. It's a really cool game. I had never heard of it. Even like, development-wise, I didn't know it was something to follow. I just got it as part of a bundle that I had bought. And I was just really charmed by it. And if there's ever a physical release on console, I'll be sure to support it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this looks great. I'll have to give that a look for myself, definitely.
So that's my little weird, obscure nugget to throw in there, was Unbox.
Fair enough. Yeah, sounds like a good one. Excellent. So, other experiences from throughout the ages. I mean, I'm thinking back now, and sort of beyond some of the stuff I played in the N64 era, most of my experience with 3D platformers since has been with Mario and Sonic, with a couple of exceptions. So I think there was the Jak and Daxter series on PS2.
Sure.
I played the first one of those and was pretty impressed with that actually at the time, because it was doing a lot of interesting things, particularly with the sort of open world design of it. I was very impressed with the kind of seamless world design that
I love the
game
original
had
Jak
there.
and Daxter.
I haven't played it for a long time, so I don't know how well it holds up today. Very well. That's good.
Yeah, because I got the PS3 collection.
Yes,
and I love it.
Yeah, so I remember Jak and Daxter sort of having that really interesting world to explore, and it was kind of a blend between a sort of vaguely believable world with a heavy dose of abstract landscapes and stuff on there as well. So there were sort of the floating platforms and stuff that you'd expect from sort of a traditional platform game, but also there was some aspects of the environment that made it a bit more believable and so on. So I enjoyed that kind of thing as a technical showcase for the PS2, and also I remember things like sort of the dialogue and the characters in it being quite entertaining and quite witty as well. So it's not a game I've played for a long time, but yeah, hearing you say that it holds up pretty well, it's one that I might have to revisit at some point.
Yeah, I haven't revisited 2 and 3 yet. But
yeah, I was going to say I'm completely unfamiliar with the second and third one. So did you play those ones back in the day?
Only in passing. Part of the reason I was keen to get the collection on the PS3 was so I could actually finally seriously play 2 and 3. But I didn't want to start 2 until I beat 1, and then I got distracted from beating 1, and then you know how life goes.
Okay.
So the thing about 2 and 3 that were interesting is kind of they tried to make the whole thing a little edgier.
Right.
So there's guns and then in 3 there's vehicles. So they kind of trickled new stuff in.
Yeah, that was a bit of a pattern around the time, wasn't it? It's like it reminds me a bit of what Ubisoft did with Prince of Persia. Like the second Prince of Persia game was the edgy one, wasn't it? If I remember correctly.
Oh god, the game was unbearable. The second Prince of Persia. What was it, like Enemy Within or something? It's like all of a sudden it was like terrible new metal, like all the commercials were like like all the electric guitar and like look at the Prince of Persia and he's got eyeliner now, so you better watch out. I know, because like the first new Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, was such like it wasn't self-aware. It was like what we were talking about with Smash Brothers, right? Like it wasn't self-aware, it wasn't postmodern. It was just this adorable, like proper, like take on Prince of Persia. Like, oh, let's make a cool game set in an Arabian Nights setting. And it's going to be fun, and there's going to be platforming puzzles and some basic combat, and everyone's going to have a good time, and we're going to tell a straight-faced story of like a Scheherazade style Arabian Nights story. Yeah. And that's going to be what we're going to do. And then and then 2 came along, and it's like, oh, multiple swords, metal bikinis, like no, it was so bad. And I was so turned off from the second one that I didn't keep playing them. Then I didn't try the third one. I think the
third one was supposed to be quite good, wasn't it?
I know the third one was supposed to be good, but I just didn't play it.
Yeah,
I was like, no.
It's like, no. Fool me once. Yeah. So, what other ones did I want to mention? I think I can't remember if we've talked about Sly Cooper before, but I vaguely remember you saying you weren't a big fan of Sly Cooper. Is that right?
No, I've never played Sly Cooper. I'm not a fan of Ratchet and Clank. I don't like Ratchet and Clank.
Ratchet and Clank I haven't played, so I can't really comment on that. I think the limit of my exposure to Ratchet and Clank is, 1, having a friend who really, really, really liked it, and 2, I think I might have played a demo on PSP at one point. But that is the extent of my experience with Ratchet and Clank.
I don't care for Ratchet and Clank.
So I don't know a lot about them. Sly Cooper I do really like, because there's I've only played the first 2. I do have the trilogy pack on PS3, but the first 2 are quite interestingly different games. So the first one feels very much like it's designed in a similar mold to N64 era platformers.
Okay.
In that it's sort of split into discrete stages. There's obviously objectives you need to complete, specific paths you need to go, and it's very much a platform game. So there are stealth elements in there, but it's mostly a fairly conventional, traditional platform game. The second game, meanwhile, took quite a different approach in that it was much more focused on the idea of doing heists. And so it was, in many ways, it was almost like a proto Assassin's Creed in some ways.
Oh, cool!
In that you've got this sort of fairly open city to wander around, and various things that you need to do to prepare for a heist, and then you have to go and do the heist. And so you've got this city to explore. There's collectibles and there's objects and there's various challenges you can do around the city. And then the actual heist side of things was a more sort of scripted type of experience where you have to sort of sneak into a place and get around various obstacles. And it's been quite a long time since I played it, so I forget a lot of the details, but I remember things like there was a sequence where you're sort of sneaking into a club and you're sort of crawling around all the light fittings in the roof to begin with, before dropping down into the offices and breaking into the safes and so on. And the one thing that Sly Cooper really nailed was the sort of close-knit buddy relationship between the people involved in the heists. So they did a really good job of having these very distinct, quite exaggerated characters working together to pull off these heists. And it was just a really enjoyable experience. And so that's another one that I really need to revisit at some point, because I never actually finished the second one, but I was having a really good time with it while I was playing it. So definitely one I want to look back on as well.
Didn't 2 have like that really delicious cell shaded style too?
They're all like that. They've all got this absolutely gorgeous cell shaded look. Like I say, the level design of the first one is a bit more sort of artificial, if you like. So it feels a lot more like platform games. But the second one has got this very, very nice aesthetic to it. So and it's got sort of heavy use of a distinct color scheme. So like the main city setting of the most of it unfolds in is sort of bathed in these sort of blues and purples and so on, and it just looks really lovely. I also have a feeling you might have a thing for Carmelita Montoya Fox from the series as well.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
I'm having not even played the game. I am familiar with that character and was about to mention her as well. So.
Yeah. So I mean, she's worth playing the games for, if nothing else. So definitely worth a look. All right. I mean, any other specific examples you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I mean, all my notes had been focused on the N64 era, but like now that we're talking about Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter and Sly, now I'm like, oh wait, the PS2 era was like ripe with these kind of games too, and like, they didn't all have to be good. Like I'm just thinking about like all the ones that came out from like these kind of third-party studios, like from the West gradually. But like I remember there was that Legend of K that was pretty popular. That actually got a remaster on like modern consoles recently. Yeah. So that was a big one. There was that one that the Nickelodeon network threw its weight behind in the US, that Tak and the Power of Juju. There were like 2 or 3 of those.
Oh yes.
There was also one that was Egyptian themed. There was a Sphinx. It was like Sphinx was the name of the game, and it was just like a platformer where you were like a Sphinx dude with like claws. Yeah. That exists. So this, like the PS2 had a lot of these kind of games on it. Now I'm kind of feeling like a dum-dum for not having played more of them. And I was so focused on RPGs back in the PS2 day.
I think what happened with the PS2 era is because that was very much the era where sort of gaming really exploded, didn't it? In terms of sort of the sheer number of things available. Whereas if you think back to the N64 library, I mean, if you talk to collectors these days, it's very feasible to have a complete collection of N64 games because there's not that many of them, and a lot of them are these 3D mascot platformers. Whereas you look at the PS2 era, there's like several thousand games available for the PS2. And so thinking about it in that context, it's kind of not surprising that a lot of these sort of passed a lot of people by. I know, like you say, you were prioritizing RPGs and things, and yeah, I was sort of in the same situation. I was prioritizing sort of the big name games, things like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that, along with RPGs and such like as well. And things like platform games were stuff that I would occasionally engage with. So I remember a couple that I played. I think there was one called Haven Call of the King that I remember playing, but I don't remember a lot about, aside from it having a really nice orchestral soundtrack. And so I remember the existence of a lot of these games, but I also remember not engaging with them because it wasn't what I was into at the time.
Yeah.
So it's obviously a pretty rich era that's worth going back to and exploring if you have an interest in the idea of 3D mascot platformers, because there's a lot out there. It's still well worth exploring. Like if stuff like Sly Cooper is anything to go by, a lot of these still hold up pretty well today.
I know I had mentioned to you too the Maximo series was really cool. I mean, I don't know if they're quite what we would consider mascot platformers, but they had jumping and running in a 3D space with cartoony style graphics, so I guess. So Maximo was from Capcom, an attempt to reboot the Ghosts and Goblins franchise. And they were developed in the West, so I remember not really engaging with them when they were new, because I was in my late teens when the PS2 was in its heyday. I was pretty xenophobic in the way I approached games, and I just kind of refused to give credence to anything that was Western developed. Yeah. Like if it wasn't Japanese, I wouldn't play it at all. Like period. Like I was just a jerk like that. So like I remember being like, what's Capcom doing handing this property off to a Western developer? But like they are good games. They're really good games. They're a lot of fun to play. And they incorporate some of the classic Ghosts and Goblins elements, kind of fun into, it's like when you get hit enough, your armor does bust off and you're in your little underpants and stuff. Yeah. It's kind of filled with those little touches, but I would really recommend checking those out. They've aged quite well as well. I had also written down some of like Treasure's weird experiments with 3D platformers. Like I know I didn't want to talk about Mario stuff too much, but I think Wario is fair game. Yeah. It's a little different. And the Wario game that Treasure made on the GameCube is amazing. Yeah. It's just a chaotic, like, no holds barred, like, platformer beat 'em up elements as well, right? Because like Wario just like wails on everything with these great combos, and like gold and jewels just like fly everywhere, and there's really creative boss battles. It's just Treasure really plying their trade specifically to a 3D platformer, which is not something they did a whole heck of a lot of. 2D platformers, yes, but not 3D. So it's a really interesting game to get your hands on if you can. Yes. Would you count... I forget what it's called. The weird game with the tits and the scarf. I was literally about to mention that. Yeah. God, what is the name of that game? It's called something completely different in different territories. That's what's confusing me. I think it's called Freak Out over here. Or over there. Something like that. Yeah. And I want to say like Shadow Panic or something. But that's not it. Stretch Panic. There you go. Yeah, I was close. Stretch Panic, yeah. Yeah, so Stretch Panic was a really early PS2 game from Treasure, wherein the whole mechanics of the game were based on that Treasure had figured out a way to program a really early physics engine that was able to render stretching and bouncing in a I won't say realistic, but an interesting way with polygons. And naturally, their first instinct, as one's first instinct is when you've created a way to make stretching and bouncing possible, is to make a game about boobs. So in Stretch Panic, you're this like really obscure looking little girl, and the whole thing has this weird like Tim Burton-esque like dark look, like really drug trippy like look to it, where everything like massive heads and spindly limbs and stuff, isn't it? Yeah, and like weird basic geometries, and it's very strange. And the whole like thing is that like the bad guys are like these weird ladies who were obsessed with plastic surgery and like self-modification, and like so they all have these like ridiculous like giant fake spherical breasts, and you have a magic scarf that you can stretch and move around the screen using the analogs with a hand on the end of it, and you pinch things with it.
Yeah.
And the way you attack these enemies is you stretch the scarf out and you grab their weird boobs and you stretch them, and then you let go, and then they snap back like a rubber band, and that's how you damage the enemies.
That is one of the most satisfying things I've done in any game. Is just the whole stretch and snap thing in that game is just, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it feels good, and the sound effects are right on key.
Because you defeat all the bosses in that way as well. All the bosses have a weak point that you need to grab hold of at the right moment, and then just grab it, stretch it, and then just snap it back, and it's just so fun. I mean, it's a weird game, and I haven't quite decided if it's good or not. But
it's curious. That's right. But it's it's treasure. It's really experimental, and there's nothing else like it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and everyone kind of forgets it when they're having greater dialogues about like Treasure's history, because like everyone forgets that Treasure's continued to make games in that era.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of is like, okay, when the PS1 and Saturn era was done, Treasure went away. It's like, no, as a matter of fact, they didn't. Mm-hmm. They made Stretch Panic, they made that great Wario game, they made the best Gradius. Gradius 5 on the PS2 was the best Gradius, hands down. So they were experimenting in that space with some really interesting concepts. So yeah, Stretch Panic, or what did you call it? Freak Out in your territory?
It's called Freak Out over here, and it's called Hippolinda in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's named something completely different in every territory it came out in. So no wonder no one remembers it.
Yeah, I got to put that on my list of PS2 games. I've been on a PS2 collecting tear lately.
Yeah.
So I got to put that on my list of stuff to pick up still. Along with Primal. That's not really a platformer per se, it's more of a 3D character action game. But I've come across that lately as something that I need to play.
Ah, okay. I always get that mixed up with something else. I think I get it mixed up with like Prey or something like that, like the original Prey, not the more recent one. But
that's a good game too, the original Prey. Primal was a 3D action platformer that was published first party by Sony, and it was very much of like its era, like kind of what I was just making fun of with Prince of Persia. Yeah. It's very much like, I'm going to listen to Evanescence and be sad all afternoon while playing this game, because it was just like, I'm a sassy brunette, and I'm going to go into a dark world filled with monsters with my gargoyle companion and learn and get monster transformations. Like, it's very like, oh boy. But it's also like really well executed and cool. So it's on my like list of stuff to play.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to check that out. That's one that I often see about. It's quite a common PS2 one over here.
Yeah, because it was a first-party game, so it was printed en masse. So it's not rare. It's not rare, but it's a competent game.
Yeah, I have to check that out, because, like I said, that's not one I've ever felt inclined to pick up for some reason. But it sounds pretty interesting, and
it's worth it.
To be honest, I kind of like the silly emo thing.
I do if it's not like terrible. Like, if it feels genuine and it doesn't feel like a cash-in, then it's cool.
Yeah. So.
Prince of Persia felt like we're doing this because it's what's popular and you're gonna like it. Primal was like, this is this game's world. Like, it was of its time, but it wasn't insincere about its presentation. So it's a totally different vibe.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I think we're going away from this segment with more things that I need to play than we came in with, which is good, to be honest.
It's not a bad way for these things to go.
Exactly. Give me plenty of ideas on new things to add to the collections. The PS2 is still the most substantial part of my collection, and I feel there's still plenty more room to expand it. So
mine too.
Good to have some good recommendations for it.
Yeah, I'm just excited for you to capture Stretch Panic footage for the video version.
God, I've got to remember how those controls work.
You have it?
I do have it. Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I can actually capture my own footage for that. I have to. Remains to be seen if I can remember exactly how to stretch and snap boobs.
You'll figure it out. It's like riding a bike. You never really forget.
All right. So before we wrap up for today, is there anything else you wanted to bring up for the subject?
No, we've gone well above and beyond my original scope for this conversation. I'm quite pleased.
Excellent. All right. So let's wrap up in the usual way then. So why don't you tell people where to find you on the internet and give you money and commission you and that sort of thing?
Yes, please enjoy my artwork and give me money. I can be found at mrgilderpixels.com. That's mrgilderpixels.com. As well as on Twitter and Instagram as Mr. Gilder Pixels. Also Tumblr, but we won't talk about Tumblr anymore.
Oh, no.
So, come check out my work and leave me some likes and comments, and please be aware that retweeting and sharing is really helpful for artists to get people to have more eyes on their work. I really like to engage with people, so come chat with me. I'm planning my next painting as we speak, so I'd really love some input from people.
Yeah, excellent. Retweeting and liking is also very helpful for writers as well. So you will find all my writing over at MoeGamer.net. That's where I write most days in the week at the moment. Also publish a bunch of videos on the YouTube channel that you may be watching this podcast on. If you're listening to this podcast on SoundCloud, there will be a link to the YouTube channel down in the description as well. So do please go and check that out. Got several ongoing Let's Play series at the moment. So playing Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast on Sundays at the moment for the Sunday driving series. Currently banging my head against Project Zero's post game on Fridays for the New Game Plus series. That bloody ghost list is going to give me a heart attack by the end of the month, I feel. And what else am I playing? Warriors Orochi on Wednesdays. And also some old Atari 8-bit games on Tuesdays and Atari ST games on Thursdays. So do please check those out. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that usual social media gubbins. Thank you very much. Yes, we hope you've enjoyed our discussion today. If you've got any thoughts and comments, do feel free to leave comments on the YouTube video or on the SoundCloud thing, or on MoeGamer.net as well, where this podcast will be posted along with all the means of subscribing and such like. So
also, I'd like to say, if people have ideas for topics for future episodes, I'd love
absolutely.
to hear some other things that people would like to hear us talk about. I mean, we're always building a list, so throw some ideas out there.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a nice spreadsheet of potential topics lined up already, but if there's anything that any of you would particularly like to hear us discuss or explore, perhaps for the first time in some cases, if it's something that we're not overly familiar with, we're happy to do research. So do let us know if you'd like us to explore a specific topic in a future episode. So, thank you very much for watching and or listening, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. Be sure to check out MoeGamer.net for new articles on Japanese and Japanese-inspired video games, new and old, every weekday. Every month, MoeGamer features an in-depth exploration of an individual game or series as its cover game, so be sure to check the archives to see if your favourite has had a deep dive yet. If you'd like to support the site directly, please consider becoming a patron or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.